Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for frame rate is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
Copying is not theft. Stealing a thing leaves one less left. Copying, it makes one thing more. That's what copying's for. Copying is not theft. If I copy yours, you have it too. One for me and one for you. That's what copies can do. If I steal your bicycle, you have to take the bus. But if I just copy it, there's one for each of us. Making more of a thing. That is what we call copying. Sharing ideas with everyone. That's why copying is fun.
It's Frame Rate! Welcome to Frame Rate. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Brian Brushwood.
And look at you, you're right.
What
Your
is this?
Skype connection is 3D
We are
today.
proud to announce that Twit has exclusive holographic interface. I'm going to be here virtually in it.
Yeah, watch.
We're going to go back and post and add the
I just
like
put my
glowing
hand
lines
through his head.
Yes, it's magic. Is
Yeah.
what it is.
It is. Well, you know, Brian Brushwood is actually right here in the very studio that I am in.
Yes,
It's kind of amazing.
You might say I'm here on the Frame Rate sets,
Yeah.
or
Well,
you could say I'm in the studio that you're in. That's
yeah.
fine too.
There's so many ways to say it. In fact, we couldn't decide, so we invited a guest. Mr. Derek Chen is with us today. Hey, Derek.
Greetings and salutations.
So, Derek, how should I introduce you? How do you want to identify yourself? Because you know a lot about the stuff that we talk about. You always give me good advice when we meet in person.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of being one of those ad guys out in New York City and being a big entertainment geek as well. I used to work out in LA too, so little
You're
bit
a
of
Ma-
everything,
so
I
you're a
suppose.
Madison Avenue guy.
I was, but I started last few years. I was a Hollywood guy because I was working by a movie studio up in LA.
So you're a Hollywood guy and a Madison Avenue guy.
He's
A little bit of both.
Holly Waddison.
Are you also
Avenue.
a lawyer and a politician?
No, I have
Because
I
then
asked to do
everyone
that
will
job.
hate you.
That's yes. No, but what I love is the way you introduced. You're like, "Do you know Derek?" I was like, "I don't know." And then you said D-Dog from the chat room. I'm like, "Oh yeah, of course." And you're like, "Yes, he's got a great talent for every time we meet in person of telling us all the things we got totally wrong."
Yeah.
And so naturally we got him on the show.
No, he's got the inside scoop on a lot of this stuff. So Derek, thanks a lot for agreeing to be on the show. Because
He promised to
that's a
give
good
us all the
perspective.
deep dish gossip that will totally get him banned from.
I'll control
working with
myself
anyone.
not to point out too many errors,
All
while
right.
you guys are alive, but
He's gonna sit there the whole time saying, "Bogus. That's not true."
That
Move
is
on to
not
the
how
big
the
story.
industry works, Merritt. That's not how he talks, as you can tell. Let's start with the big story.
This just in, the big story.
Big story. We actually mentioned in our special Dragon Con
teased.
episode, but
We
we didn't
foreshadowed.
end up talking about it. Which reminds me, actually, a big thanks to Patrick Delahanty and Zach.
Zach Holder, yeah.
For all their help at Dragon Con, running the live view, putting together cameras, setting stuff up. We would not have had anything. I know there were some audio issues and stuff with some of the stuff we had for frame rate. We wouldn't have anything if it weren't for those guys.
Those were also the same two guys who stepped up at South by Southwest earlier this year, and having never even seen the equipment before, took me and Justin Robert Young to the streets so we could see all the parties going on at South by Southwest.
But the big story, of course, is the breakup of Starz and Netflix. It is Starz basically saying, you know what? We want more than just money.
This is
we
really-
want to be a tier. We want Netflix to have not only a disc-only program and a streaming-only program, but a premier streaming program that would include Starz.
Yeah, now, first of all, for people who only casually use Netflix, they might not realize that just about all of your favorite movies, all of the quote-unquote good stuff, especially early on, always started with that Starz On-Demand logo before it got started. And that's because Starz used their content, and they got a sweetheart deal with Netflix. And Netflix, this was an incredible leverage to make Netflix give it the dominant position it has today. And I don't know if you remember this, but we met with the folks over at Starz at CES earlier this year, at the beginning of this year. And it was amazing to hear the frustration in their voice. It was clear they were not happy with the deal they were getting because from a branding perspective, everyone just assumed it was Netflix that was great, not Starz. And from a monetary perspective, they said we're not getting paid enough for as many uses as these copyright properties are getting. So it doesn't surprise me that there is a divorce. It does surprise me why they divorced, because the word was that the deal on the table was for $300 million a year.
Yeah.
How would you like to check
a
for
significant increase over what Starz was getting paid before?
Absolutely. Well, it's $300 million a year.
Well, I mean, we're not talking about some guy in his basement.
It's one guy.
I mean, yeah, you and I, $300 million, that's a big thing.
Yes.
But it's about the fact that they didn't think they were getting paid enough before, and now they're getting a significant increase.
Yes, and you would have thought that would have been enough to do it, but it wasn't the money at all that made them walk away, right?
No, it was the fact that they want to protect that premier branding that you were just talking about, and they've decided to evaluate new opportunities. Netflix spokesman Steve Swayze is quoted as saying it can redirect the Starz money to deals with other content providers to maintain or even improve the Netflix experience. So Netflix immediately goes into spin mode to say, you know what, they're only 8% of our content, and you know what, we can use that money to get lots of great stuff, and we're not worried about it at all.
Well, and that's true, and maybe they are in a position. In the short term, of course, this is going to deal a blow to Netflix. The good news is all the good content, your Toy Story 3s, and I don't know if the Miramax was part of the Starz package or not, but the content that you know is Starz related will continue to go to what, December or sometime February 2012, right?
February 2012 is when the current deal ends, so it's not like the stuff disappears right away. Netflix has some time to put some new relationships into place.
And to be honest, from Netflix's perspective, they don't even have to have recovered by February of 2012. All they need to do is between now and then, from a game theory perspective, secure a deal so they can make a big announcement about a new partner around that time. And I think they'll weather the storm. I feel really bad for Starz, though. I don't know how Starz thinks they win in this walking away deal.
Well, because there's lots of competition. There's lots of other places to go.
But specifically,
you could go to Amazon, you could go to iTunes, you could start your own streaming thing, you could boost up some other like small fry player that hasn't got a lot of attention yet.
But here's the problem: is what Starz wanted is to be treated like they were dealing with a premium cable company, and they weren't. They're dealing with Netflix, who prides itself on a dead simple model of all you can eat for $10 a month, and that is clearly what the consumer wants, and it's clearly. I would imagine where your Amazons and Hulu Pluses are going to go. So I don't see how it expects to get the kind of treatment that it wants from Netflix. Like that was the deal breaker, is they didn't get treated the right way. I don't see how they're going to get that from any of the other players.
Derek, do you have a?
Oh, look at that! Derek knows.
No. Actually, I just thought of it right now. Maybe they're. I mean, the hard part about online videos, everyone's still figuring it out. Do you go the advertising route? Do you go the revenue route? I think that's what everyone's trying to figure out. Maybe Starz is actually looking at HBO though, because we know that HBO recently came up with that app too, where they're trying to take control of their content, distribute an official app out, which hopefully either will get more people to sign up for cable itself, or to get people to maybe they have plans to do something kind of video streaming only. But I think maybe Starz is looking at what the other competitors are doing, because it's just not working out with them through Netflix right now, and they'd rather be in control of their own content.
Tim Carmody at Wired basically wrote a long article about how this is a turning point for Netflix, which everyone thought would just keep getting better and better and better over time and keep getting more and more and more content. And all of a sudden now they're facing a reverse where they're losing content for the first time. And what he points out is that the industry is not going to play ball with the Hulus and the Netflixes the way that they have up till now, because it's starting to get serious. They want some serious money and they want some serious control. So I think what Derek's saying is pretty interesting. The idea of Starz saying, you know what, we don't care. Screw you. If nobody will give us the deal we want with a premium tier, then we won't give anyone our content. We'll go, and maybe we'll go it alone. Maybe we put on an app or something like that. That's not what they're saying, but I'm saying that makes sense.
And here is, and it's so weird for the first time in my life, have a conversation with somebody who clearly was frustrated at Starz going into this, saying, well, what are we supposed to do? We can't renegotiate the deal. We're only getting paid this much, and nobody knows it's our content. And I remember thinking, like, it's a bummer that a year ago, if Starz truly was upset about this and they really wanted to go it alone, what they should have done is massage the deal to say, okay, that little 3-second, Starz on demand thing, nobody knows what that means. Nobody understands that this is not Netflix's content, it's Starz content. You need to replace that with a different intro that educates the audience to where then they're
I don't know if they could.
They probably couldn't.
They
probably couldn't.
Yeah,
exactly. But so bizarre to see the way that broke down. And I can't, I don't know, maybe they'll go it alone. That's the only way I can see
and
they
don't
win
forget, all Starz is doing, in
Stall
most
Starz?
cases, is taking movies that other studios have made, licensing them, and then relicensing them out.
Right.
This is not a studio. So Netflix probably says, you know what, we don't need Starz. It's convenient, but we could start taking that money and getting in the direct game with the studios and saying, you know what, instead of licensing that movie to Starz, license it to us. Derek?
Well, I was going to say that. I was thinking that Starz, actually, they've been trying really hard to push their own content, because I flew into LAX the other day, and just right by the airport is a giant, building-sized billboard for Torchwood. And, I mean, whether it was at San Diego Comic-Con, I mean, Starz is really pushing hard for their content. So, I mean, I really can see something where they're going to try to push hard to be kind of less than just, to redirect kind of movies that have been out already, but to try to be...
Pipe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they really want to be that premium content where they're making original shows, or that source for original shows now. So I think that's the route they're pushing for.
Okay, so right now we're sitting and we have a minor setback. I would say the worst this could be is a minor setback for Netflix. Agreed?
Yeah, it could. It's a crack, right? And a crack could turn into, a break in the foundation,
That's the real question.
or it could just be,
Yeah.
But yeah.
I would say that Starz probably not looking like the big winner. I understand why they refused to go with the deal, because this is just you're right, it would turn them into a dump pipe, and of course AT&T fought this in the data wars as well. I think the big winners here are... The big winners, I think, are Hulu and Amazon, and possibly Starz, if they come back as their own standing on-demand brand.
Right. Well, and what Hulu is going to be interesting, which leads us to another big story. We really need to shorten this.
Stop everything. It's another big story.
We need to make it longer. It needs to be like another thing, people of America.
We really
prepare
need to
yourselves,
lengthen this.
because in just a moment you're going to hear yet another big story.
Now they
starting now.
Talked about this on Tech News Today as well. Hulu's been up for sale since June. At least that's the report. Nobody's confirmed it, but nobody's really denying it either. Bids have apparently, according to VentureBeat.com, fluctuated between $1.5 billion and $2 billion. Hulu, if you don't know, is owned by Disney, News Corp, Comcast, and Providence Equity, and a few other people. And DirecTV has reportedly now dropped out of the bidding. And that, again, these are all reports on rumors. There's nothing public, but that apparently leaves Amazon, Yahoo, and Dish bidding on Hulu.
I would have, if you asked me a month ago to rate those in terms of like who's got the most credibility, I would have put Yahoo at the bottom. But now I think Yahoo is at the top. I think there's an excellent probability at this point. If we're going to make a friendly bet between the three of us, I'm going to put my money on Yahoo. Partly because, mainly because they've got to do something fundamental to shift what they're doing. Yahoo is an amorphous brand that's really floundering right now, and I think this is a good opportunity for them to consolidate what they mean in the consumer's mind.
Plus, it's really easy to change it to Yahoo.
Yeah, Yahoo, yes. Done. That's why.
The branding is so
I
much
can see the
simpler.
CEO is just like, no, seriously, Yahoo. Huh?
Sign here.
Come on. Yahoo. Yeah.
One thing to point out in here as well is that Google, in a separate article, not from VentureBeat, All Things D, reporting that Google has allegedly made a bid, although it's not engaged in the fight amongst Amazon and Yahoo, because they're saying, I know you've got all these conditions you want the bidders to meet and you're negotiating with them, but how about if we just throw that all out? There's some debate on what the actual bid is, but essentially it looks like Google is saying, you know what, we'll just give you a lot more cash as long as we don't have to meet all of your conditions.
It must be nice to be in that negotiating
I know.
position. Like, look, man,
Look,
I hear you. Yada, yada,
You know
yada.
how we dropped
I'm gonna
these
start writing
containers
zeros
all over the United
this
States
check.
and everyone thinks it's for dark fiber? They're full of money. We'll give you the address to one of them.
Actually, let's clarify. Half of them are filled with bombs. Seriously, take the deal.
You don't know which ones until you take the deal. Rather than bid on what Hulu's owners have offered for sale, Google has proposed a different acquisition on a larger scale, according to people familiar with the sales process. If you want to speculate, you could imagine Google asking for access to more content for a longer period of time, et cetera, et cetera. That's what Peter Kafka writes over at the Google or at the All Things D blog. All right, so let's go around the horn. You said Yahoo.
Yes,
you think
Yahoo, for sure.
And Google possibly being sort of an outside bidder, like making it rain in the corner,
Yes.
doesn't change that.
No, let me tell you, Google, I think, has a reputation for, flashing its cash and then walking away. I mean, you remember all
Yeah.
the noise they were making with the Spectrum auction, and then they dropped out of that patent deal a while ago.
Although they did buy Motorola.
Well, okay, so sometimes they actually
Sometimes they
throw out
walk
the cash.
in, yeah, and
but they
throw the
certainly
cash in.
like to be like, guess who we are? So I'm going to say Hulu. I mean, Yahoo. Yahoo.
Hulugal or Yahoo?
Yahoo.
Yahoo.
Derek?
I'd have to probably side more with Brian too on it, just because Google definitely can use it, just because they own YouTube already, but it's all UGC stuff, and they've been trying hard to do premium content, and it's not coming along for them, and so getting Hulu is a great way to kind of get now both the UGC stuff and kind of that premium content that they know people like, but I think you're gonna have an issue when Google controls that much of it, and I think everyone's gonna put a big stink if Google really tries to gun for Hulu. So I think Yahoo. I mean, they're desperate. They're in a poor situation right now. They're gonna go for that.
I think that's a really good point, because obviously Google does have the cash, but you got to think about what it does for its branding and for what it means for its monopolistic value if it all of a sudden owns YouTube and Hulu as well. That could be a reputation problem for them.
Yahoo, Derek, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but Yahoo has a lot of a pretty experienced Hollywood talent now. They've got a Santa Monica office. They've got some senior people who actually, know the ins and outs of Hollywood. That could be a really good fit for Yahoo. I have to agree.
Yeah. I mean, Yahoo's definitely been trying hard on it. But, what really gets to me is that, looking at more recent news with kind of Hulu, though, all of this whoever buys it, they can end up with really nothing because we've seen what Fox has done with that eight-day delay, and we won't really get to see how that's going to, we've seen it with kind of the ramp up in piracy, just with the 2 cooking shows or whatever it's called, but we haven't really seen kind of the full season start. But, I know that ABC and all these other channels, they're watching closely, and if it's something where, once Hulu gets sold and you really see all the different networks really redoing the way they work with Hulu, Hulu can really fall apart, and whoever buys it can really end up with, a really bad deal. So that's also something to consider too. That I'd be more guarded, honestly, when it comes to buying Hulu. It's just we don't know how the networks are gonna go with this online streaming deal.
That makes one of the other rumored possible acquirers interesting in Dish, who already has these relationships, and that gives them an advantage in operating a Hulu, because they can say, look, hey, we already got relationships. We know how you guys work. We know what your feelings are in this stuff. But it also gives them some leverage to say, like, and so if you want to keep ESPN on the basic tier, ABC, you need to give us more stuff for the Hulu.
Wow. Actually, that disturbs me. Now all of a sudden I actively want Yahoo to buy Hulu.
Instead of Dish.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, because what happens with Yahoo, though, is they don't have that leverage. They've got to go in and say, please.
Right.
Dish can say, please, but we also have a stick we can hit with you with.
Please, no, seriously,
So,
you want to
you know
do
what?
this.
Your 28 days, Fox, that's great. FX just went to digital tier channel 507.
Wow. Yes.
And that 28-day thing goes away. I don't know. I say that because they have some leverage. Dish has not got the footprint of a Comcast or maybe even of a Time Warner. Their numbers are down, but they do give them a little leverage.
Agreed.
All right. And Amazon. Any thoughts on Amazon being a possible acquirer? I think they're kind of the dark horse here.
I think you said everything you needed to say when you went, oh, hey, Amazon, they also exist. You want to talk about them?
They're going to do a great tablet. Don't
People are
see them
people are
buying
going to buy
Hulu.
free shipping, and they're going to watch
And
some free
Hulu will be
movies.
blocked on that tablet.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Before we move on, I want to thank our folks at New Tech who make the TriCaster, which allows us to put up pretty lower thirds that say New Tech TriCaster, because the show is New Tech TriCaster powered. The new TriCaster 850 is basically a giant TV truck that magically is shrunk down into a rack-sized computer.
They just did my favorite thing. Can you do another transition? I insist. Jason, transition us.
This is the J.J. Abrams lens flare transition.
And go. Yes!
Yeah.
What just happened?
Wait, hold on.
Someone forgot to enter the numbers.
Did somebody just score a touchdown?
Oh, wait a minute. No.
Let's see
no.
that again,
But somebody
Jason.
lit it on fire.
Oh! Come on, dude. This thing is so awesome.
TriCaster lets us broadcast, live stream, project, and record HD video all at the same time. Big thanks to the New Tech folks. The TriCaster 850 is a huge monster of a switcher, and we're so happy to be able to play with it here in the new studio. If you would like to find out more about the TriCaster, visit them at newtek.com. That's newtek.com with a K. Time now for the Film Found. Film Found movies coming to Canada from YouTube. This is one of those, like, just tippy-toeing across the border sort of stories.
Well, and it's like
don't forget, YouTube rents movies, and by the way, now Canada gets them.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like there's only so long you can listen to the howls of frustration from your neighbors to the north.
Pardon us, Jason.
Every single time. Wait, is Jason Canadian?
No, his last name's Hal.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Remember that.
There's only so long that you can listen to people howl every time we tell. And
He said it again, but it's okay.
Yeah. It's all right. I forgive you. I forgive
So
you.
you're going to start
What I'm trying to
sort
say
out
is-
peeping Toms again?
Canadians are upset that they can't get a lot of the Netflix services, so somebody needs to give them the service they want.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, they have a Netflix service, but you're right. They're always complaining that it's not as good as the U.S. one. And they're always complaining that, you know, oh, the U.S. gets everything early. They get everything first. We definitely have the YouTube rental service first, but nobody uses it, so why not let Canada use it?
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
no, absolutely.
It's just going to waste, right?
Well, and I don't think we've even had a story about the success rate that YouTube has had with their rentals. I mean, we talked about the announcement for it, and I'm guessing, this is pure speculation, but I'm guessing the fact that we haven't seen a story touting how successful it's been is a bit of an indicator of how many people have been using it. I mean, if you asked me to name 5 ways I would rent a movie, I don't even know that I would put YouTube on that list, even though we've talked about it on this show.
But the reason I like this story is that we actually see a competitor moving into the world, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, we have YouTube movie rentals in the U.S. and maybe they're not that successful, but now Canada has another player in that streaming movie rental service with the stupid 24 to 48 hour limit on how long you can watch it. But otherwise, you know, it's good to have
Not that you're bitter,
competitor. Everybody has it, so it's not like it's YouTube's fault.
Yeah.
Love Film also talking about streaming only services in other countries. Love Film is in the UK, as well as Germany, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, and they're sort of a Netflix-like service.
We were talking about this.
The Love Film Chief Marketing Officer Simon Morris told Paid Content, "We're looking to grow the business wherever customers want our service. If the product is right, we'd look at a digital-only service for certain markets."
Now, I would love to, if somebody could send us an email to framerateshow@gmail.com, and they live in the UK, explain to us what the difference between Love Film between Netflix is, if there is
yeah,
any.
because as I understand it, it is basically the same service, but there may be some nuances.
But and I'm sure there are nuanced differences between it. But
like they spell things with U's.
That's right. But when you have a service that is following the footsteps of somebody else, it's obvious that you need to follow the same playbook if you want to get the same kind of success. So good on Movie Film for going ahead and following in what has become the most successful.
What did you just say?
What?
Love Film or Movie Film?
I meant Love Film.
Oh, yeah.
I meant
That's
good
what
on
you
movie film for filming movies. Good on them for following in the footsteps of Netflix. Hopefully they'll get the same level of success.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see more competitors rise up. The only problem is, are we going to have the continuing restrictions on the amount of stuff they have? Are these licensing deals going to continue to, you know, stop people from getting a good selection? Derek, what's the way out of this freaking forest of like, hey, we've got like 5 or 6 different great movie services and they all have crap selection?
I don't think there's a way out of it unless you have like a huge
never
revolution among unless you get a huge revolution among the people, I mean, the hardest part is just there's too much control there's too many players involved, all trying to protect their business models, and I think that's the hardest thing that in today's age, you think that it'd be so easy to watch one movie, from Japan, or people in China watching a movie from America, but it just doesn't happen just because everyone. I mean, there's between politics and money, honestly, and people who just don't get the internet. Because at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing, is that you have a lot of people who really don't get it or don't want to get it because they're making money now. So why risk doing something different, and possibly, losing big? I think that's the biggest impediment right now to why we're not seeing more kind of content being pushed online when it really should be.
So we've got, obviously, Netflix has a dominant share here in the United States, and we, in general, like what Netflix is doing. It does make me nervous, though, that they are so far ahead of all of the other competition, and I would like to see more competition. The story like the YouTube moving north and movie film growing in Netflix's footsteps makes me afraid that what could happen is that the version of competition that we get is essentially carving out territories by geography. So, Love Film is #1 in the UK, and Netflix is #1 here, and YouTube Rentals #1 in Canada or whatever. I'd like to see a more universal head-to-head competition between the two so that more consumers can win. And I think I just said movie film again earlier.
But that's because they really need to change their name to movie film.
They should. It's not redundant. It's movie film.
What's wrong with them? All right, movies coming out this week. Contagion. We don't have a summer movie draft anymore.
Oh my God.
It's all over.
It's officially over?
Yeah, it's officially pretty much over. I mean, we gave the rundown last week. I think we've got another week before everything is written in stone. But
so you're saying there's a chance?
So what you're saying is it's time for us all to cough up $20 a piece and give it to one Sarah Lane.
There's no chance. We might as well just pay Sarah now.
$20.
Contagion coming out this week. That's a thriller sort of Contagion movie, right?
Yeah,
it's a plague movie.
We obviously just got back from Dragon Con. When I say just got back, I mean today. Just got back.
I drove from the airport to here.
Yes.
And that's all I've done in California so far.
I drove from Atlanta into Austin to find my state on fire, and then immediately got on a plane and came here. That was pretty insane. But we, of course, were part of the Skeptics track there, and I was listening to a couple of Skeptic podcasts. Perhaps the evidence suggests that we were part of the Skeptics track. And there's this, from what I understand, Contagion kind of sets itself apart from a lot of the other outbreak-style movies in that it's got harder science that's more solid than those. And
Gallifrey Rebels claims in the chat room it is a remake of Outbreak, so it's building on the same source material.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
I was watching, they had a whole bunch of clips, I think, on one of the blog sites. I was watching 12 clips of it nonstop, and honestly, by the end of it, I've been rethinking, when I touch on the subway, it's gotten me so paranoid. And I'm not, a big germ guy, but just watching this movie really gets you thinking about it. And I mean, we kind of saw at the end of the, spoiler alert, but one of the recent summer movies also talked about, spreading diseases, and so it's just kind of going hand in hand. It just makes you think about it now.
If you want to see Gwyneth Paltrow look really bad, watch this movie. Every trailer they show her with getting the disease, and it's just awful. Kate Winslet, Jude Law, Lawrence Fishburne, Matt Damon's big names in this thing.
It's an all-star cast.
Sit there feeling all superior, you used to be so pretty, but now you're sick with the disease. I'm prettier than you.
Also, Shaolin is out in the U.S. As feuding warlords fight to expand their power, the noble monks of the Shaolin Temple clean up the mess left behind, tending to the injured while trying their best to protect the poor and weak. Just to, I don't really know much else about this movie. I would like to point out that you said
poor and weak. That's not porn week, as I heard it.
As I am. Heard it. So there you go. Those are a couple of the films that are out this week. We thought you might be interested. Let's move on to the Tube Tops. Hulu Japan launches with hundreds of films.
Hundreds of titles. And that's apparently a direct quotation. We're reading the article from paidcontent.org. But hundreds of films and thousands of hours of TV.
Hence I put it in the Tube Top section because it has thousands of hours of TV, but only hundreds of films.
That's right.
$1,480 a month, or roughly $18.50. Japanese subscribers can watch across an array of devices, with one exception. Hulu Japan is ad-free when you pay for Hulu Plus.
What a novel idea.
Derek Chen, explain to us Why the hell am I paying for Hulu Plus and yet I have to watch ads?
You'd have to take that out with the networks. I mean, it's a question that we have, but I mean, I love the fact that I can advertise to people still with Hulu Plus. Although
he's one of them.
I mean,
this is not helping. This is
it's hard. I'm always conflicted because, like, as an advertiser, I love, digging into people, finding out your browsing history or retargeting you or knowing you by your behaviors. But then as a tech guy, it drives me mad. Like, changing all my privacy settings on Facebook, making sure that, I can't get tracked the way I track people.
But I think you nailed it. It's like, this is the part that totally breaks down with me. By every way I could conceive of, advertising in a medium like Hulu is superior to traditional, dumb box advertising, because you know exactly who watched it, how long they watched it, what they did, how they interacted, and what their interests are. Why on earth do they have to sell Hulu ads at bargain basement prices? Why are we not paying more for Hulu ads compared to primetime television?
Oh, I mean, what's funny with Hulu? Well, I mean, actually, Hulu's pretty expensive. And I think I've sent it one time to Tom for TNT or something. But, I mean, you think that online video is cheap, but it's actually really not that cheap. It's the buying it through TV actually sometimes is better than buying it through Hulu directly. And I mean, that's the crazy thing. It's like,
why
when you
is
talk to
that?
Hulu right now. Well, right now Hulu's just like, hey, you're getting a TV audience. You have to pay. Of course, you have to pay more. Like, you're getting premium content. So it's kind of funny. Everyone thinks that online advertising is that much cheaper. It at times isn't, and especially when it comes to video, everyone's charging huge prices right now because they're all saying, well, we're like TV now. And
okay,
you're
but
not really getting efficiencies.
If the prices are similar for online television versus regular television, then that would make me think that online television should be making lots of money the more people they get to watch. And yet, what it looks like they're doing is saying, you know what, we have to really restrict the number of people who can watch because we don't make enough money off of online. Why is that the argument?
I mean, it's kind of weird. I know, volume definitely is one issue with Hulu because, like, even what you're thinking, when you think Hulu, you think that's so easy to target people by specific television shows that I can, catch one guy who's watching, American Dad, in New York at this time and give them that ad. But it actually, it's not that easy. They group things together. It's still being, it's actually funny. You get almost more granular right now with TV when you can, pick specific shows and time slots, while with online right now through a lot of these large video aggregators, whether it's Hulu or other people, you still buy them by an entire category or genre. You're not buying it by show individually. If you want to do that, you have to go straight back into the network itself. So if I want to buy Simpsons, I go to Fox. I don't go to Hulu for that. Hulu sells you animations overall, or they sell you kind of a males 18 to 34 comedy, bundle. You're not actually getting it. That's the irony of it, is that you're not actually.
Yeah, this is the part that confuses me. So it's like, I understand there's a breakdown of communication, and that's the way the system is right now. But the weird thing is the advertisers would prefer it if they were able to access exactly this show at exactly this demographic, exactly this time. The people watching it would prefer that because it would be a relevant ad to their interest at that exact time. And of course, the people buying the ads want it. Why don't we have this? What is stopping it from getting all on the same
advertisers,
page?
we've made this. I mean, as I know, I've shot it up the ladder before. I think ultimately, I think it goes back into who owns Hulu right now, and just a lot of the decisions being made by the networks or people behind it. Because I mean, that's a frequent complaint by advertisers, like, hey, this is Hulu. Why can't I buy this? I just want to buy this show. And I think one is that they want to make sure that they are still selling ads on these other lesser shows that they're also paying for. The thing is, it's very easy to sell American Dad, but there's a whole bunch of other content that they're trying to sell through as well that no one's ever going to buy just on its own.
This seems so easy to fix. If that's the problem, if the problem is that the other content doesn't fetch a high price, you lower the price. It's like you can get American Dad at this time for $80 CPM, or you can get
I think I get it though. I just bought a huge package from CBS Studios that includes all the old episodes of MacGyver and Hawaii Five-0 and Star Trek, and even Star Trek. isn't going to be streamed as often as the news shows from CBS. I know CBS isn't part of Hulu, but let's pretend they are for this example.
Yeah.
So as Hulu, I want to sell ads across the entire spread because I want to take advantage of that long tail of people watching old MacGyver episodes and Hawaii Five-0 and Den's Beaten Brown Shoe and whatever else is out there, that I'm not going to have a buyer come in and say, I want to buy old episodes of MacGyver. And so they package it up like that. And what would make sense would be to just say, you know what, let's just sell the really popular stuff, but they've already paid for that other stuff, so they're trying to monetize it. Is that about right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely closer to that. I think that's when it goes back to kind of that older TV model where, I mean, even with TV, you know, when you buy regular TV, you have kind of your select shows, but then you also have to kind of buy some other spots and time slots that you're not really gunning for. But, you know, I think that's the difficulty with it. Again, you're having this really old model with, you know, these people in control are still living off these old networks, and they're taking baby steps into something new. And so right now, Hulu, like I said, it's still under control of Fox, NBC, ABC, and so they're not really that ready to, you know, do it the way that we would like to see it. And I think that's just unfortunately the way that it is right now. That's how the establishment is, and with our, you know, both advertisers and consumers, I think we're unfortunately we're stuck too, just as much.
Okay, so here's the way my argument usually runs, which is if an eyeball's watching it on the web or the television and you're getting the same amount of money, why do you care? And it sounds like the reason you care
and specifically,
is
why do you care
because
about
you, as an advertiser, can't buy the same eyeball at the same exact, you know, target that you want, because Hulu is in effect acting as if they were the cable operator and they're going to sell all the ads for all the shows. Now, imagine if Comcast said, yeah, there are no more ads from the networks.
Now, this is
we are going to buy all the channels and all the ad inventory, and we're going to sell all the ads. They're going to want to try to force you to buy ads on the upper tier digital channels that they're spending money on, rather than saying you can buy this slice.
Well,
speak for
I
the
think
industry. Go.
I think. Well, I mean, the biggest thing I think, you know, for me is that I'm getting pushed back to go back to the direct networks, you know, to buy that premium inventory, so that I don't have to get run of crap, run of network, whatever, run of channel, whatever. Is that, you know, if you do want that premium inventory, you go back to Fox, you know, and that's where you can kind of, you know, either buy it as a larger deal or just go back to, you know, or select the shows that you want specifically. And I think, you know, like, it's just, it is kind of that weird model where it doesn't make sense for the rest of us, but it makes sense for the networks.
Well, I understand the importance of volume over margin. You know, most of these big PC manufacturers, their highest margin product is a mouse pad, but you don't get rich selling mouse pads. You got to sell giant systems, and so you got to move a lot of them. And if you got to make a big impression, then you buy a lot of ads, and you lose the opportunity to specifically target them, like we talked about. But you brought up something that I don't think I've ever thought about before, which is the dollar value of an ad campaign hitting everyone at the exact same moment, as opposed to the difference between like on the web, it's scattershot. You got all these different shows that are being watched at all different times and all different demographics and all different shows, and they're pretty much getting the message one part at a time. But when you do something like a Super Bowl ad, or a, you know, we'll say when 24 was real popular, you're buying that prime time space, then you're able to inject an idea into the consciousness of an entire country at the exact same time. And for that, I think you would want to pay.
You know what's even
money.
crazier than that, Brian, is the fact that, you know, depends obviously from advertiser to advertiser, depends on client to client, but some of these clients out there, I mean, they're very traditional. They're, you know, you're talking about people, you know, people who are managing these brands, you know, that are handling advertising, but they're much older. They don't, and for them, if you put an ad on Hulu, they're not going to really watch it, because again, that Hulu skews a little bit, at least still younger right now. I mean, a lot of people, TV's still kind of that main base. That's where people go to. And so when you do an ad on Super Bowl, when you do an ad on the newest episode of Glee, it makes way. The people that I'm trying to please, the clients, they see it more, and so unfortunately, that still kind of registers more too in terms of having a successful campaign, is having it on TV rather than online on Hulu. Even though I might catch the eyeball that I want in my audience, it doesn't really have that same effect. And you know, there's still different studies, and it's kind of weird, but you know, there's still a question of whether or not an eyeball online translates to an eyeball on TV. I mean, there's different studies here and there. We're still trying to figure that out.
So
as
right
well.
now, we're still clearly on the side where television, traditional media is the 800-pound gorilla. New media is emerging, and finally, we're at least getting a seat at the table. And I say we because, clearly here at the Twit Network, we're in that boat, and we care very much about how these ads things. I got to imagine for all of the benefits that you get from new media advertising and on-demand video, I got to imagine that eventually it'll shift in our favor. But the question is it going to be a slow, steady
Well, it sounds like
trade?
Derek just said we have to wait for all the old people to die.
That's what it sounded like to me as well. But
I mean, TV advertising is that's one of the oldest kind of, I guess, advertising establishments, institutions still out there. And, I mean, you're talking about, people in their, much older than me, probably twice
40s.
my age. I mean, controlling millions upon millions of dollars. I mean, even for most brands, advertising budgets for online are only a fraction of what really goes on to things like, especially to TV. I mean, the cool thing, if you read ComScore and a lot of the stuff, online has now surpassed print, magazines, radio, pretty much all other forms of media except for TV. But the thing is, TV, like you said, is that 800-pound gorilla, but it's probably like 2 tons. I mean, and it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon.
I just want to throw this out there. I want to give my prediction on the record. First of all of the traction we've seen, all of the changes we've seen have happened only in the last 10, 15 years. That is massive to go from zero to something. Once you get from something beyond, I think it's going to happen much faster than you guys give credit for, because there's 2 things. First of all, the older generation goes away, but they also change.
You kill them.
I personally killed them, but they also change their habits. My parents-in-law are rocking iPhones now. That means they had to learn how to use it, and then when they get a link, it's easy for them to click a button, and now they're watching a video. Yeah. I think it's 2 ways. The older guard dies, but also habits do change from the ground up. And with to be honest, I think it's smartphone that's going to drive the transformation. I think it'll happen probably in the next 5 years.
I absolutely disagree with you.
A lot of it is also you have to. I think you also have to look at it like TV's going to evolve as well. I mean, it's weird. You can't really think of 5-10 years from now where it's still going to be split really easy from, you have your internet on your computer and your TV. I mean, even now we're starting to see how internet's starting to combine with the TV a lot more. I think you're going to see more and more of that infusion and evolution of media and the way we, what's an iPad nowadays? It's, it has digital print, it has online display, it has online video, and then if you have Time Warner Cable app, you're still watching TV too on the iPad. And so the way we're reading media, exactly what you're saying, Brian, is that it's changing so fast. And I think that in the next few years, we're going to see TV become different than what we've known it to be for the last few years.
So a couple of things out of that. One is I think you're right, which is why I said I disagree. I think the home theater PC, the Roku, the thing that makes the online television on your actual television is what will change all of this.
Okay.
And the
so
reason
you're
I
saying
say
you don't disagree with my conclusion. You disagree with how I got there.
I think it's not the smartphone that makes in fact, the smartphone complicates it. From what Derek was saying, if I have an eyeball that's looking at a smartphone, we still don't know do they absorb the message the same way? Does it impact how many impressions do they have to have? There's a lot of different statistics there. But I think that goes away. It doesn't go away, but I think that becomes less of a concern when we finally get that box that sits in your living room and changes the game and says, now you can get everything that's on the internet on your television, and you're in the same situation. You're sitting there with a remote in your hand, and all of a sudden the eyeball is the same for the most part as it was before. And you have this added calculus of there's also these mobile viewers and there's also these other viewers, and that's complex and still has to be adapted, but it's not as big of a threat, and it's not as scary when you're like, oh, but if they're watching on a Roku, I can actually measure it very similar and with much more precision than I could with the Nielsen ratings before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, not to jump into another future prediction, but I mean, think about like the way that we're getting more and more comfortable with, front-facing cameras on our phones and Skype-enabled TVs. I mean, how about a future where literally the TV can tell you how many eyeballs are watching the TV? And so I think that's another big
people
thing.
with eye patches.
But I mean, it's the promise of like
off.
We can tell you to an advertiser, because a lot of it still comes back to money. We can tell you exactly how many people are watching this show at any given time. We can maybe tailor specific messages to households that only have kids watching. And I think as we get more and more kind of that that wired technology into our TV sets and our phones, and I think with that evolution will, it's gonna really lure in advertisers with more money, and we'll see that evolution kind of snowball.
That was yet another big story. Is what
that was
ended
yet
up
another
being.
big story. In my defense, I do want to say that I don't think it'll be the smartphone that actually counts for consumption. I think it's the type of thing that counts for education, for people who wouldn't ever consider watching a Roku box or something like that. They're like, oh, that's that technical mumbo jumbo.
Well, I think we're going to. There's still yet to be that iPad, that iPod. That says this is what that's supposed to be.
Right.
And I'm not saying that means it has to come from Apple in this case. It doesn't. It just has to be the one that everyone goes, oh, that's easy.
Right.
Oh, I can just plug that in and watch television. And we still don't have that yet. And part of it is the ecosystem. Part of it is bandwidth. Part of it is licensing. But eventually somebody's going to figure out all that stuff.
Everybody rolls their eyes on it, but I'm saying don't count out the Google TV to be that device, because they will make better iterations. It's going to move forward, and I think that it's a brand that people can associate with simple consumption.
All right, let's blaze through the rest of the tube tops here. Fox is, while they're delaying 28 days all of the news shows on Hulu, they are giving you a free episode of New Girl starring Zooey Deschanel as an experiment. Fox doesn't usually give you the free episode in advance, but they've done it a couple of times. So.
I'm so on guard. I'm just like, what's the catch? What's the
They
catch?
just want you to watch the show early. They want to get you hooked on early.
Yeah.
Well, I understand, but
And it's
still.
Zooey Deschanel, so there's buzz around it.
So I just get this free candy. All I have to do is get in the van.
Yeah.
You sure?
Just come on in the van. You'll be
All
fine. Lots of gadgets coming out of IFA in Berlin. So we'll try to blaze through these things. But LG, Philips, and Sharp announced Smart TV, which is an SDK, a software development kit that allows people to make apps that will work across multiple TVs. This will allow for smoother rollout of apps, which means you get better apps on your television. If you buy an internet-connected television from LG, Philips, or Sharp, they only have to write the app once. Doesn't really change things on your end, except possibly increase the selection of apps on your television.
I love the idea. I hate the fact that it's built into a TV.
Yeah. I know that's a whole different story. But if you have one of those televisions, you might be seeing more apps. The Mind Control TV prototype from Haier blew my mind.
Yes,
I
I on purpose
headband.
did not watch this video because I wanted to see it live.
You put this headband on, and it senses. It's like a sensor. It's like a sort of an electrode, and you have to. It's like watching one of those 3D pictures. You have to put your mind in the right state. And the prototype, all you can do is you put your mind in the right state, and it blows up a barrel. But what it's eventually going to do is allow you to change the channel by thinking.
So awesome.
You can do volume up, volume down. They want to do all the functions of a remote will come by thinking. And obviously, this guy's got a dorky headband on that doesn't look like something people are going to want. Oh, yes, so do I. But most people are going to want to wear something like that while they're actually watching TV. But maybe they'll get it down slimmer and less obtrusive, so that you maybe just like a really unnoticeable thing.
It'll be. It's always so funny when a new technology like this is developed. You think of what would make sense as an application for it, and it almost always turns out to be totally wrong. What this will actually be used for will be something that none of us even has on our mind right now in the future. But I love the fact that we're moving this direction, and it's great that the thing even works at all. That's amazing to me.
You want to control the TV with your mind, Derek?
I don't know. I was thinking about wait, I have to do work and think while I'm watching the TV. It almost sounds like more work than
just
hitting the button mindlessly.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like if you're going to wear a thing on your head, why don't you just make it to where you blink twice and it changes the, instead you're like,
well, you only have to concentrate. You only have to concentrate to train yourself. Once you get good at it, it would just, your brain would.
To be honest, what I think would really be amazing for this, and of course, this is the kind of thing that down the road, it's a controller that you control with your mind, but also, by the way, you get free HBO and all these other shows if you also allow us to pay attention to what you like and don't like as the program goes on.
It'd be great for advertising.
Yeah.
I don't think that's part of the prototype, though.
Not the prototype. I'm just saying.
Mactivia is a device that allows you to shuffle audio and video on your Mac straight to your HD TV wirelessly without limitations. So taking something Apple does and trying to do it better. That's a pretty interesting little wireless device out of IFA. And then ASRock Vision 3D is I didn't realize that this is a really popular home theater PC that is now getting Sandy Bridge. The idea is that you put this thing in your home theater. It's home theater shaped. which has always been my complaint. There haven't been a lot of these things. And it has a 1 gigabyte GeForce GT540M card, 1333 megahertz of RAM, HDMI 1.4a port, Blu-ray drive, NVIDIA's 3D Vision, so you can watch things in 3D, media remote, USB 3.0. I mean, it's stacked. And you get a choice of i3, i5, and i7 processors.
This is what I've been calling for, because I say that all of the set-top boxes have been underpowered, and this is going to be the kind of thing that jumps it forward.
And this has been around for a while, and Antec has previously reviewed the previous version and called it the best SFF HTPC they have ever reviewed, hands down.
And I haven't even seen one of these, but I'm going to bet, just totally blind, that there's going to be some killer interfaces, user-generated, that allow you to get what we keep saying on the show, what you want, when you want it, how you want it.
The thing is, this is not the box that's going to make it popular, because it's, it's
no,
thousands
it's a high-end,
of
it's a boutique
dollars,
thing.
right? Yeah, exactly.
Of course.
This is the kind of thing Scott Wilkinson, is going to throw in his home theater. And then Vestel showed off a prototype BitTorrent certified TV at IFA. BitTorrent, the company.
Okay.
Certifying the television, guaranteed to work with BitTorrent-approved files from the internet. No word on an official release for the prototype, but
it's
works like DivX or XBMC or Boxy.
There's no number, there's no end to the number of clever things you can add to a television, none of which are a good idea.
Right. No one would ever buy a console, say in, I don't know, 2003, and just keep that same console for 8 years.
Well, that's what, but that's what I'm saying, is that you still have it, but you've bought other consoles since then. You've upgraded. You haven't gotten any other consoles since 2003.
Well, I've bought other brands of consoles because I want to cover all of them.
That's what I'm saying.
I bought an Xbox 360. I've not bought a new Xbox 360, and it still runs all of the new things that Microsoft rolls out. I don't have to keep upgrading it.
No, but that's just it. Okay.
It upgrades the firmware. Televisions can be like that.
You're making my point for me. It's better because you can upgrade it whenever you want with whatever you want. How would you love it if I soldered that Xbox to your television and said...
But you're missing my point, which is the television can be firmware upgraded exactly like the Xbox. The television can have inputs with USB ports just like the Xbox.
Dude, you know what I'm smelling?
You don't have to replace the television.
I'm smelling a fantastic opportunity for people to write us at framerateshow@gmail.com and say whose side they're on, whether or not, yes, it's good to build stuff into televisions, or no, televisions should be dumb, beautiful displays, and you attach the things that you want
so
to create
iMac was a failure, in your opinion?
the
Because the
iMac?
monitor was built into the machine.
It was a revolutionary step that got us towards the iPad.
No one will ever buy a laptop. The screen is built into it.
Well, essentially, the problem is that it made displays disposable.
Calculators are worthless.
Where are you headed, Baron? What's going on here? You're like, you hate America.
I'm sorry, you were making a serious point.
No, yeah, I'm serious. Please write us at framerateshow@gmail.com and say who's right.
All right, Derek, who's right? First, you get the first choice.
I'm not gonna take sides on this one.
Says the man who lives inside a television box.
All right, we got to move on. So let's get to we actually have been
like Daddy and Daddy are fighting.
We've actually been. I accidentally moved into interferon, but let's finish off with the last of the interferon and play the intro.
Wasn't sure what you were gonna do there.
We had so many products. Some of them, it's hard to decide where the line is between this stuff and whether it should have belong in our TV section or our web video section, because they're things that bring television from
Maybe
the
we should
internet
abolish having separate sections and instead just have a slider bar that slowly changes over the spectrum as the show goes on.
Sony slipped out a lot of home theater hardware at IFA, and you can probably, if you watch Home Theater Geeks on Twitch, you'll be able to get a great rundown of stuff that's coming out there. But the SMP N200 caught my eye. It's a net box that debuted last year. They've refreshed the design and now support HD and 3D, which makes it much more valuable in my opinion. It's got a Blu-ray player that supports DLNA, and which means you can move content, around your network using the DLNA, like to a tablet S, to a tablet P, and it's a projector. If I slid over that too fast for you, it's a projector. So the screen is going to be 16:9, as wide as your wall.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'll tell you what, man. If you told me 5 years ago that we would even be considering the need for 4K displays in the home, I would have thought you were high as a kite. But seeing these projectors that all of a sudden were taking entire walls of everybody's. I mean, I don't think there's a single person who doesn't have a friend who has a home theater inside one of their houses. We're moving to the point where you're gonna have to up the resolution if you got 16 by 9 over 20 feet wide in one of your rooms.
All right, let's finish off with a little bit of feedback.
Nope. That was the wrong one.
Now it's time
for feedback with
Okay, you can sing along if you want.
on Frame Rate, oh yeah.
I'll read this first one here. Hey guys, this is from Davey. Just downloaded your show for Dragon Con and wanted to vent some of my frustration about the way tech is portrayed in TV. My wife hates this, but I can't help but point out the problem on certain TV shows. We'll be watching some crime drama and I'll find myself saying it doesn't work like that. I try to suspend my disbelief, but sometimes it goes too far. I recently watched the show Prison Break, the beginning of which was pretty good, and I'll actually vouch for that. It actually started out pretty good, and then went silly. I love shows that highlight the extremes of human ingenuity, but by the 4th season, they suddenly find themselves using a fictional device the size of a cell phone that, quote, sucks up electronic data like a black hole. I couldn't take it. I kept asking, how the expletive deleted does that work? And such, we soon had to stop watching the show. I think these sort of things bother me the most. I can accept in Star Trek or Stargate, anything set in the far future are based on alien tech, but when you present to me something that is just so far out of the realm of any possibility existing today, begins to bother me. Just had to throw in my 2 cents. And I think that's one of the things we said at the panel was that as long as it's when you're in a particular world that everything goes nutty, that it drives you a little bit nuts.
Exactly, and I think that his distinction between like future worlds and current worlds being like, okay, yeah, if it's set far in the future, yeah, I'll let it do whatever. But you know, if it's supposed to be present day, it's got to work like present day. And John Titor,
that's John Tilton. That's actually
Tilton.
This is actually something like for 3 weeks. John, every time we finish, we were talking a lot about the Blu-ray stuff. We're talking about Star Wars a lot. And every time he keeps saying the same thing, I'm like, oh, yeah, we should talk about this stuff. He's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a letter and put it in feedback. So this is John Tilton's voice.
John Tilton works with you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So feel free to read as much or as little of this as
John
you like.
says, like you and the rest of the internet, I've been bummed out about the recent Star Wars changes on the upcoming Blu-ray release. I agree that Lucas has the right to alter his own movies, but not allowing fans to have a decent release of the original films is outrageous. Thankfully, there is a small community of Star Wars fans over at originaltrilogy.com who have been hard at work preserving Star Wars since, at this point, it's clear George Lucas has no intention to. Several of the site projects involve crowdsourcing existing 35mm prints of the trilogy in order to have a transfer done themselves, which due to expenses and legal reasons may never see the light of day. Other projects include fan despecializations in HD of the entire original trilogy. The particular one I looked at was done by Harmy, who took a handful of existing sources for each film, including HD television broadcast, 70mm cell scans, upscaled versions of the Laserdisc release, and more, in order to compile the best of each source to more accurately represent the original untouched films. The quality of work and time spent on this project makes it a worthwhile look for any Star Wars fans, especially those who are frustrated with the recent Blu-ray news. That is incredible.
That is amazing, right? And the idea that, think about it, I remember when the special editions came back into theaters, there were news stories talking about how, oh, look how crappy these prints would look nowadays, but thanks to the remastering, they look like this. Nowadays, that's something that's totally crowdsourceable. Now everybody could take an original scan of the original print and create their own version of it. Of course, there's only the legal entanglements that blow things up. Do you want to cover this story? I see what you're pulling up right here.
So I've been doing a little side checking here on a breaking news story as we're recording Frame Rate right now, and it does bear on our earlier conversation about
very
Yahoo.
heavily. All of a sudden, I would like to rescind my prediction. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yahoo has confirmed that Carol Bartz is no longer CEO of Yahoo, and CFO Tim Morse has been named interim CEO. The message went out as an email, apparently, some sources saying from her iPad. I don't know if that part's true or not. To all, I am very sad to tell you that I've just been fired over the phone by Yahoo's chairman of the board. It has been my pleasure to work with all of you, and I wish you only the best going forward. That sounds a little Carol Bart's upset.
Yes. Oh, really? You think? A little bit? Now, here's the question, though. As far as bears on our story over here, does this mean that we're seeing more of the hilarious Yahoo tailspin going around, or is this a case of somebody has a direct vision and maybe she disagreed with it and then she's out?
Sources said that Morse, which is the guy taking over as CEO, held a call with Yahoo's senior staff this afternoon telling them Bartz was out and that a search for a permanent CEO is commencing. Several sources said the board, specifically Chairman Roy Bostock and co-founder Jerry Yang, informed Bartz of the need to make a change. So what led to this is hard to suss out. But obviously something pushed them into saying, we have to do it today. Carol, you're out. We're going to try to look for somebody else right away. How it bears on a possible Hulu acquisition, I don't know if it does. I don't know if it has anything to do with a Hulu acquisition.
No, I'm not saying the firing has anything to do with the Hulu acquisition, but clearly this kind of jumble at the top has to affect their decision or non-decision to acquire a gigantic company like Hulu.
Yeah, and board chairman Bostock has publicly backed Bartz. Multiple sources said he had started to become more involved at looking at the management issues at the company and its challenges. Yang has also become more active and increasing pressure on the directors of the company from its major shareholders to act has gained in recent months. So it may be just a shareholder revolt that said, you've got to get rid of her, and you've got to get rid of her now, and you're not going to get a good CEO replacement until you get rid of her. We don't want to go through some song and dance where you're secretly trying to meet with replacements while she's running the show. Get her out, put the CFO in charge, and let's find a replacement. And yeah, I don't think it connects to the Hulu thing. I don't think it's like, oh, and now we're going to go Hollywood and buy Hulu and put the, put some Hollywood CEO in charge of Yahoo.
No, and I'm not suggesting that. But,
no,
I mean,
I know you're not. I'm just I'm just talking out, thinking out loud.
But seriously, I mean, I think this would definitely harm their positioning to acquire it. I don't know. I mean, Derek, you got anything?
I mean, yeah, I mean, Hulu. I mean, just it seems like they just need to figure a lot of things out. I mean,
Yahoo.
They've gone from Yahoo. I mean, just kind of going from look at where they were 5-10 years ago, and just kind of how they progressed from that big search destination to a portal to now they're doing kind of network DSP stuff, and it's just kind of changed over time. I don't think they're really finding their place right now. So you're right. I mean, I think they need to find themselves before they can make any big acquisitions.
All right, thanks, Derek. Appreciate you giving us some insight into how this weird industry works and some of the inner workings of it. It's really fascinating and great to have you on. Let folks know where they can find more of you online.
I think the best way is to find me on Twitter at DerekC82. I'll post anything on my blogs or Google Plus or whatever. So just find me on Twitter.
Excellent. And Brian, good to be in person.
Well, hello.
Wait,
I'm not a hologram at all.
I've made you real.
Person. I'm a real boy. Today is the greatest day of my entire life.
And you can, of course, find us, framerateshow@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time on Frame Rate. Wait.
No,